This is how it ended for Nicolae and Elena Ceaușescu, tied up, hands behind their backs, and just moments later, shot dead by a firing squad. They were once the most powerful couple in Romania. In seconds, both of them were dead, killed by the very soldiers who once followed their orders. It was a shocking and sudden end. Just 10 days earlier, Nicolae Ceaușescu was still in full control of Romania. So how did everything fall apart so fast? To understand their terrible downfall, we need to go back to the protests, the chaos, and the moment the people stood up and said, enough. Nicolae Ceaușescu's ascent to power began in the mid-20th century. Born in 1918 in a small Romanian village, he joined the Romanian Communist Party in his youth. By 1965, he had become the general secretary of the party, and in 1967, he assumed the role of president of Romania. Initially, Ceaușescu was seen as a reformer, gaining international attention for condemning the Soviet invasion of Czechoslovakia in 1968. This stance earned him favor both domestically and abroad. However, his leadership soon took a turn. Influenced by visits to North Korea and China, Ceaușescu developed a cult of personality, positioning himself as the genius of the Carpathians. He centralized power, suppressed dissent, and expanded the Securitate, Romania's secret police, creating a pervasive surveillance state. His wife, Elena Ceaușescu, also rose to prominence, despite lacking formal education. She was appointed to high-ranking positions, including deputy prime minister, and was portrayed as a renowned scientist. A lot of people thought her titles and achievements were fake or undeserved. Her rise to power was seen as being due more to her husband's influence than her own abilities. But the consolidation of power was just the beginning. The Ceaușescu's policies would soon plunge Romania into economic despair. In the 1970s, Ceaușescu embarked on ambitious industrial projects, financed by foreign loans. By the early 1980s, Romania faced a mounting debt crisis. He wanted to get rid of Romania's foreign debt no matter what. So, he forced the entire country to live with less. Less food, less electricity, less heat, and fewer basic goods, just to save money and send it abroad to pay the debt. Exports were prioritized, leading to widespread shortages of food, fuel, and basic necessities. Electricity was rationed, and citizens endured long lines for meager supplies. Life was uncomfortable, cold, and unfair for most Romanians during this time. Despite the hardships, Ceaușescu continued extravagant projects, such as the construction of the Palace of the Parliament in Bucharest, one of the largest administrative buildings in the world. While Ceaușescu and the people in power lived in luxury, ordinary people were struggling. Seeing this huge difference made people angry and bitter, and their anger kept growing. The revolution ignited in mid-December 1989 in the western city of Timișoara. A protest started when the government tried to forcefully remove a local Protestant pastor named Laszlo Tokes from his home. Pastor Tokes had been speaking out against the cruel and unfair government, and people wanted to protect him. Crowds quickly gathered around his apartment, forming a human chain. The group grew bigger by the hour, and soon the protest turned into something much more serious. At first, the government sent in the police and secret security forces to try and stop the crowd. They used tear gas, water cannons, and even started beating and arresting peaceful people. But instead of running away, the protesters stood their ground. Then, on December 17th, the situation turned deadly. The government sent in the military, soldiers, tanks, and armored vehicles to crush the protest. The soldiers were ordered to shoot into the crowd. People were killed in horrific ways. Some were shot in the street, others were beaten to death or even run over by military vehicles. The exact number of deaths is still unclear, but some reports say between 2,000 and 4,500 people may have died in the early days of the uprising. Many bodies were secretly burned or buried in mass graves, so the truth wouldn't get out. But it did. News of the killing spread fast, even though the government tried to hide what had happened. The attempt to cover up the truth made people even angrier. What started as a protest to save one man turned into the beginning of a full revolution. On December 21st, 1989, Nicolae Ceaușescu organized a massive rally in Bucharest, aiming to demonstrate his control over the country amidst growing unrest. Thousands were brought to the city's main square, many under pressure or threats, to show support for the regime. As Ceaușescu began his speech from the balcony of the Central Committee building, the atmosphere quickly changed. Instead of the usual cheers, the crowd started to boo and jeer, shouting, "Timișoara! Timișoara!" a reference to the recent massacre of protesters in that city. Ceaușescu appeared confused and startled, repeatedly trying to calm the crowd by raising his hand and saying, "Hello." The live television broadcast was abruptly cut, but the damage was done. For the first time, the Romanian people saw a glimpse of the regime's vulnerability. The carefully crafted image of Ceaușescu's unchallenged authority was shattered. Chaos erupted in the streets as protesters clashed with security forces. The illusion of Ceaușescu's control was gone, and the momentum of the revolution became unstoppable. By the morning of December the 22nd, 1989, Nicolae and Elena Ceaușescu knew the end was near. As the building shook with chaos, the dictator and his wife fled to the rooftop. There, a helicopter was waiting. Nicolae, still clinging to his belief in his power, ordered the pilot to fly to T2, a small town where he thought he could regroup with loyal forces. But it was already too late. The military had turned against him. Soldiers across Romania were joining the revolution. His words no longer held weight. As the helicopter flew low over the city, the pilot began receiving radio warnings that air defense units might shoot them down if they didn't land. Realizing that even the air was no longer safe, the pilot pretended there was a mechanical issue and landed on a random country road near Târgoviște, far from where Ceaușescu had wanted to go. The landing spot was isolated, with only 2 nervous bodyguards still protecting the dictator and his wife. Looking for a way to escape after landing on the road, Ceaușescu and Elena stopped a passing car. They hijacked it, forcing the driver to take them away from the area. Eventually, they reached a nearby agricultural institute. As word spread that the Ceaușescus were nearby, local police and then the military arrived. Nicolae's power had completely vanished. They were put under armed guard and moved to a military garrison in Târgoviște. The new leaders who had taken control after Ceaușescu fled were getting ready to quickly put him on trial and sentence him or most likely to death. This was no ordinary trial. It was a rushed proceeding ordered by the new interim leadership led by Ion Iliescu, who had taken power after Ceaușescu's escape. The new leaders feared that if they didn't act quickly, loyalists or foreign agents might try to rescue the Ceaușescus, or worse, that civil war could erupt. Iliescu and the other new officials wanted a fast and final judgment. The military court was instructed, no delays, no appeals, no mercy. The decision was practically made before the trial began. The charges were serious: genocide, for the killing of over 60,000 people, subversion of state power, for dismantling democratic institutions, destruction of the economy, for running the country into the ground while living in luxury, illegal enrichment, including over $1 billion allegedly hidden in foreign bank accounts. When the judge read the charges aloud, Nicolae Ceaușescu exploded in rage. One officer later said, "They still thought they were untouchable. Even there, surrounded by armed guards, they acted like they were in charge." The trial lasted only 55 minutes. They had no lawyers, no real defense. Nicolae kept repeating communist slogans, quoting the Constitution, and brushing off every accusation. Elena, meanwhile, tried to blame foreign agents and counter-revolutionaries for the uprising. The judge announced the verdict: guilty on all charges. The sentence: death by firing squad, effective immediately. There was no time to waste. Word had already spread that they were captured, and rumors were flying about possible attempts to rescue them. The military wanted this over before anything went wrong. Nicolae and Elena were blindfolded and led outside, into a narrow, walled courtyard behind the building. Soldiers formed a firing line. Ceaușescu sang parts of the Internationale, a communist anthem, while Elena cried out, "Don't kill us! We are innocent! Long live Romania!" They were executed side by side in less than a minute. Romania and the world watched in disbelief as the couple who once ruled with iron fists were brought down like common criminals.